Hi there. I apologize for the quality of the video. But I've been watching some YouTubes. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole on YouTube, and I found these YouTubers, Paul and Morgan, and I know they're not very new YouTubers. They've got a decent amount of following to them. They're pretty new to me, I guess. I've heard bits of them, but I've never really sat down to watch them. And I've started watching some of their videos, and I've started watching this particular one about, I think it's called What It Looks Like for a Wife to Submit, and a Husband to Lead. For a little bit of context, I am religious, I guess. Wouldn't necessarily outrightly say, hey, I'm a Christian, because some Christians have ruined that title. Christians like these have ruined that title. But I have a very close relationship with God, and I walk with him very closely, and I study bits when I can't be bothered, because honestly I'm lazy. But yes. So I'm gonna get on, watch this video, and let you guys know what I think in between it. So let's.
And if we get one comment that says, "How dare you tell me how to live my life?"
Why you want to tell me how to live my life?
We're not telling anyone how to live their life.
We're saying go to the Word of God and let the Word of God tell you. Someone's going to tell you how to live your life. Is it going to be yourself?
Why does somebody have to
or
tell
is it
me how to
gonna be
live my
someone
life?
higher than you? What's
I
up,
kind of live
guys?
my
How you
life
doing?
based on what I want to live. I'm sorry.
This is Paul and Morgan, the Paul and Morgan Show. So, today's video, we have decided to tackle what it looks like for husbands to lead and wives to submit, particularly in a Christian relationship, because we're going to be using the Bible, as we should, for all of our worldviews.
Okay. With that, we're 43 seconds in. Not only what I'm not going to say too much because I haven't watched all the video, but what does it mean for a husband to lead and a wife to submit? Like, what exactly does that mean? Because to me, that sounds a bit like a dictatorship. How you have a leader, as somebody who's put forth and has to make all of the big decisions and all this sort of stuff, and the other person, the rest of the people just have to follow along with it. And that's honestly what this kind of sounds like. And why is it men that have to lead? Or why, I'm bisexual. I've been in relationships with women before, as well as with men. Currently with a man. So, what does that mean? If I was in a relationship with a woman, who leads? So, yeah. Anyway.
You guys, today's video is sponsored by Movement.
Oh, I don't care about the sponsorship.
The last assumptions about our marriage, we answered one that pretty much was saying they questioned if I was really the leader or if Morgan was the leader in our relationship. And so we touched on that briefly, not real long. We didn't go into a lot of
Morgan
depth,
seems like she has a very big
per
personality, a very leadership-based personality. So, they suit each other quite well. I must say, they do. They look very cute together. I like his shirt a lot.
I disagree with you guys. You guys talked about wives submitting. What? How dare you? Or maybe, guys, I'm a Christian and I see things a little bit differently. So there was a wide variety of responses. And then, of course, some agreed with us. And we noticed comments saying, can you guys make a follow-up video diving deeper into this topic of wives submitting, husbands leading? What does that look like?
So yeah, we decided that we would take on this topic briefly, but we want to make it very, very, very clear.
Calm down.
We've been married for 3 years. That's not a super long time. We get that. We are still very much figuring out what the husband leadership and wife submitting looks like in our marriage.
That's understandable. Thank you for bringing that up. Okay.
In a way, it'll look different for everyone, but in a way, it'll look similar for everyone who is trying to have a godly marriage. Because we're all called to the same thing, but we're all very different and unique people.
Sure.
So we're just going to be sharing with you guys what it looks like for us in our marriage. And, we're going to be reading some verses from the Bible and sharing what we believe those Bible verses mean. So this is just our opinion. We're not saying this is how you better do it.
And Morgan and I even talked about doing a
Okay, that's a good point. Everybody's relationships are different. This could work for them. That's fine. That's up to them. They're not telling other people how to live, but I'm not here to judge them based on that. I'm honestly just here to pop in my opinion and open up for debate, because debate's fun. Let's keep going.
follow-up video to this and bringing in an older couple that we feel like has some good insight on this. So if you guys really would like to see that, comment below and let us know. But right now, you just got us. You're stuck with us. I've noticed kind of a trend of comments or a trend of worldviews of people saying like, I'm a Christian and I just want you to know, guys, that God's intention is not that one of the parties would be a leader. It's equal leadership. God's not going to put the man as the leader and the wife as underneath that. Like, we've worked way too hard in culture and the feminist movement to take that big step backwards. We get that you're well-intentioned, but you can't just buy into what culture is shoving on you. And that's why we're going to go to the Word and see that, whoa, like there are some specific things that the Lord has set up for a wife and for a husband, and they look different.
Yeah. And we have a verse for that. Read the one from Genesis.
Genesis 3:16, so we're going way back to Genesis. Let's
Way
go
back
to the
to
New
the start,
Living Translation. Then he said to the woman, this is God talking to the woman after she ate the fruit.
He says woman
I will
funny.
sharpen the pain of your pregnancy, and in pain you will give birth, and you will desire to control your husband, but he will rule over you. English Standard Version.
Okay, thank
Your
you.
desire shall be contrary to your husband.
Okay,
Then the NIV
that's
is a little
understandable. I like
different.
that
It says
version.
your desire will be for your husband, but I think when you go into the commentary interpretation, it's saying a woman's desire is...
Okay, so let's just talk about the Bible for a second. So the Bible was obviously written in ancient Greek and Hebrew, all that sort of stuff, and it has been translated many times over. There are many different kinds and different versions of the Bible that you will come across, many different reiterations, people trying to put it in more simpler language to understand it better. There are tons and tons and tons of different versions of the Bible, and I like how they have brought up the same verse but in different kinds of the Bible, because language is really important. The words that we use are really, really important. Some words that we use today might mean something completely different than they did 50 to 100 years ago, so that needs to be kept in mind as well. They're going way back to Genesis. So this is the Old Testament, right? The Old Testament is different to the New Testament. So the Old Testament was before Jesus was born, and the New Testament is obviously after Jesus was born. So they're one Bible, but the Old Testament tends to use different language to the New Testament. So I like to be very, very careful choosing any sort of verses from the Old Testament, because during that time, right, so think of it as you have a relationship with a child, right? Say your son, your daughter, or your little brother or your little sister. I work with children for a living, so I deal with this sort of stuff on a daily basis. Children don't have the knowledge that we do as adults, okay? So you can tell a child to go brush their teeth, right? But they're going to be like, well, I don't really want to brush my teeth. I don't really feel like it, because they don't fully understand, they don't fully grasp that brushing your teeth is actually healthy for your gums, and it will prevent in the future lots of gum diseases or cavities and things like that, right? We know that as adults. As children, they don't fully grasp that in their head, like they can barely even grasp something that is 50 kilometers away. They don't grasp that concept, am I right? So telling a child that, hey, you need to brush your teeth because it's healthy for you down in the long run, it'll prevent the cavity, all that sort of everything that I just said, they're not going to grasp it. So to make it simpler for them, you say, okay, it is a rule to brush your teeth. right? So by putting a rule in place, you have said, okay, this needs to be done, otherwise there will be consequences, right? And that is a lot of the time how children work, understandably so. Consequences are put in place so that the children knows where to steer and what to base their daily life off of. But when they become adults, or as they are becoming adults, as they are growing and maturing, they begin to grasp that, hey, brushing my teeth is actually healthy for me, and it's going to do me better for the long run. So that was very much the Old Testament. The Old Testament was written for immature people who would sleep with their mothers and think that that was okay. Things like that, right? Diseases were passed in many, many different ways, but they couldn't quite grasp this whole thing of diseases, which is why a lot of rules were put in place as to when to have sex with women, especially if they were on their period and things like that, because diseases could be put in place, especially for the women. It could be very dangerous, especially back in those old days when they didn't have the science and the knowledge that we do now. So when you are taking something from the Old Testament, you have to be really careful and really considerate, because it was written for people, for immature people in a different time, a completely different era, right? Different to what we have now. We have so much more knowledge now, so much more science now to understand and to grasp. So we no longer need the rules that were placed in the Bible at that point in time, because we have grown from that. We have matured from that. And sorry to say, but if you still are relying a lot of the time on the Old Testament for your everyday life, I'm not saying you're immature, but like, if the shoe fits. Anyway, sorry. Let's continue.
It's going to be.
It's like the husband's role, but God said, too bad the husband's going to rule over you.
Yeah, I'm not claiming, I did a little research into this, but I'm not claiming to really understand that totally. I actually prefer going to the New Testament and seeing where Paul is laying out the husband and wife roles. I think it's just to me easier to be like, okay, this makes sense. This seems a little like, here's your punishment. I do think with the coming of Jesus, and Jesus being the perfect husband, and then the church being the bride, he set up a beautiful model. And I do feel like going from this verse to where you have Paul talking about it after Jesus, some things perhaps shifted. So that's why I want to like dive into these verses in the New Testament.
As I said.
Well, it's interesting because I could see someone being like, see, if Eve hadn't bitten from the apple, they would have been equal. But I don't think that's what it is. I think that from the very beginning, God made man to lead the woman and God to lead the man. But
alright. I have a problem with that too. Let's open up verses about God creating man and woman, because I am a terrible human being and I don't know the verses off the top of my head. Okay, so this is the international version, the New International Version, Genesis 1:27. So God created mankind in his own image. Mankind in his own image. The image of God. He created them, male and female. He created them. He created them. He created them both. He did not create man and then say, hey, he needs somebody to follow him around. No. So I do want to point out, men and women do have very different attributes, like physical, obviously, attributes, and also mental attributes too. My dad likes to put it in place, and I'm not sure if I fully agree with it, but my dad likes to explain it as women are more like, a shotgun, where they have a wide range of what they can think of, right? Whereas men can think further, but more often on one thing. I mean, and it's things like that. Women are not more emotional, but lean towards more of a I guess in a way they're more, I don't want to say intellectual, and this isn't like a generalization. Like, this is a very big generalization, right? I'm not talking about individual people or anything like that. I'm talking overall, especially back in these days, women would think a lot more often than men would. Men would act on their gut feelings and stuff like that, whereas because women weren't allowed to talk very often, we kept a lot of our own thoughts in our minds, right? Where is I going with this? Hold on, let me watch again to try and figure out what I was saying.
But I think that, like, if Adam and Eve had not sinned...
Oh, right. Okay. So, Adam and Eve were made to complement each other. They were made to work as one unit. Does that make sense? I personally believe in the Holy Trinity. So, God the Father, Jesus Christ the Son, and the Holy Spirit. They work as one unit. All three of them together work as one. I believe in some cases you can tell the difference between God the Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. You can notice personally. It's also more of like a theory of mine than it is, anything else. With evidence to back it up. However, they have different attributes and they bring different things to the relationship. Adam and Eve had different attributes and brought different things to the relationship, and they were supposed to work together as one, which was why in the first place Eve was taken from Adam, because at one point they were one. But one whole doesn't work as much as two things working together to make one thing. I believe in the circle of life, right? The circle of beneficence. In order for something to be thriving and to be living, there has to be some sort of cycle happening. Look at electricity for one thing. You have it's working in a cycle, and when you turn the light switch off, that cycle is then broken. But you need something to feed the energy into in order for this to work. Adam can't feed more energy into himself, right? So God said, this isn't good. He himself said it isn't good. So that's when he created Eve, because they need to be channeling into each other in order for a healthy relationship to thrive. So one is not placed above the other. They are two, they are equal, and together they make one unit. They have different attributes, sure. Bring different things to the table, sure. Adam brings the meat in and Eve cooks it because she has the knowledge to do that, and Adam has the knowledge to bring the food in the first place. That's just how that worked, and that was their cycle, and that was how they processed. It did not mean by any means at all that Adam was the leader of the relationship. Just want to put that out there, and I don't believe it was like that to begin with. However, after the fall, after Adam and Eve fell, it did begin to twist. And I will talk more about that if the subject comes up later. Now, okay.
Such a strife.
That's an interesting point. The tension would not have been
Yeah.
what God is suddenly saying, like here,
yeah.
now there's going to be some tension.
Like, there would be no desire in the woman to want to control.
That's interesting.
Because the world would be perfect.
You got an interesting point.
Yeah, and not to say that
is
like,
interesting.
if
That is
Adam
an
and
interesting
Eve
point.
hadn't
He is
sinned,
right.
like, women just would cook food and sew clothes, and like they'd be totally happy with that. Like, I still believe that there would be women who would have leadership identities. Like I've said, I have a leadership complex or whatever. Yes. I still think that there would be that, but I think that it would be like the perfect balance of like husband, wife. She knows that she's a leader, but she has no problem submitting to her husband. I don't know. I just think things would be so much easier.
I think this was the tension that was brought up. The whole men control the women. That was the tension that was brought up. The fact that men. So, let's talk about sin for a quick second. Let's talk about the definition of sin. Let's see. Definition of sin. let's look at, first of all, I'll Google it. A moral act considered to be transgression against divine law. So, an act, right? An immoral act. I believe, personally, it is not the act that is the sin. It is what is going on inside of the brain. That is the sin. It's the thought process. Oh, sorry, gotta move, my leg's going numb. It's the thought process behind the act. It's why they did that act in the first place. It is the intention behind it that is the sin. Because you can intend to kill someone and not actually kill them, but then somebody could not intend to kill anybody, but then accidentally kill somebody. You know, it's less the act that happened and more the intention that was behind it. What was I going with this?
You had taken a bite of that fruit. Our culture.
So.
She's a leader, but she has no problem submitting to her husband. I don't know. I just think things would be so much easier if Eve had taken a bite of that fruit.
Okay, that's right. So where I was going with it was the tension began to rise when I feel like maybe, I'm not too sure if it's mentioned in the Bible or anything like that, but knowing from what I know of human beings, Eve stuffed up, Adam blamed Eve for what happened, and then there was that tension, that whole, I cannot trust you to make another decision because I'm afraid that you will stuff it up again for all of us. So that's when Adam was like, I'm going to control this relationship, and Eve was probably like, okay, well, I didn't mean to stuff up this relationship. You took a bite of that apple too. You are just as responsible as I am. That was that tension between them, and I definitely believe that they probably had 50 billion arguments about that. Whether it's mentioned in the Bible or not, it is human nature now. It is now human nature to have arguments about that and to have that that tension. Does that make sense? It's just, you know, I mean, if your partner stuffs something up, I know that if my partner hasn't cleaned the I live in a caravan, but if my partner hasn't come home and cleaned the caravan after he's been home all day, and after I've come home from a long day where the caravan isn't clean, I get frustrated at that. And then I feel like I can't trust him to do what needs to get done. Because he hasn't proved in the past. And I feel like Adam and Eve probably had a similar situation where Eve stuffed up, obviously, by taking a bite of that apple, and now everybody's whole entire life is destroyed. Like, the whole entire world is destroyed because Eve took a bite of that apple, and no doubt Adam was like, this was on you, and Eve was like, no, this was on the two of us. So I feel like that's where the tension came. It came from this whole men has to dominate the woman and women have to submit to men. That's the tension.
Our culture, the world we live in, when we hear that we have to submit to someone, like, it sounds terrible.
There's nothing wrong with submission, all right? I feel like in some ways submission is revealing to people that you are vulnerable, and it is human to be vulnerable. I happily submit to my partner all the time, and he does the same to me. When I feel like I have done something wrong, I say, look, I am sorry. I submit to you, and I will fix this. I feel like submit, again, is the wrong word. That makes me uncomfortable. But it's just saying, I'm vulnerable in this situation. I'm opening myself up to you. Both parties should be submitting to each other in order to give to each other as well. So in order to give, it must also be accepted, and you need to submit in order to accept. You need to open yourself up in order to accept. So it should be both parties. There's nothing wrong with submission whatsoever. And maybe that is, as she said, a cultural society thing. But I don't think it is. I think submission is just has a bad connotation behind it. Like, it's just got this negativity feel that one must submit to the other. You know what I mean?
Horrible. But it's like, I got to choose who I was going to submit to. So, like, when I found Paul and we were dating and whatnot, like, when we were getting to know each other, I got to get to know him and decide, like, is this man going to be able to lead me? And I wanted...
Well, I mean, that's a good point too. I have always strived in my relationships to search for somebody who has something more. I mean, does that make, like, somebody who would complement me, not lead me, and not define who I am as a human being, and not tell me how to live my life, but somebody who I could not even rely on, but I think I said the right word before. I forgot what I said now. Somebody who will compliment me, right? So I'm a very shy person. I struggle talking a lot, and when I do, I feel like I get all the wrong words out. You know, as you can see, I've struggled. I've been watching this I've been talking for 25 minutes, yet I've been sitting here watching this for 8 minutes. Because I feel like I can't grasp the correct words. Whereas my partner, and what I've always sought for something in a partner, is that they can do that. Not so that they could lead me or anything like that, purely so they could complement that. If I felt like I was struggling, they could step in and be like, this is what she's trying to say. Somebody who understood me more than anybody because I submitted to them. So on and so forth.
A man who was going to be able to lead me, and so, like...
Oh, and it should be that vice versa. When your partner is looking for somebody, whether they're a male or female, when they are looking for somebody, they should be looking for the same thing. They should be looking for attributes about you that complement them. Not to lead you, but maybe to guide or to support you.
You know, just in the whole dating process, like, we get to decide. It's not like all of a sudden a man is put over us and we have to submit to him no matter what.
And verses in the New Testament we're about to get into, like, the husband has a role which is pretty crazy. It's like, husbands, love your wives and lay down your life for her like Christ did for the church. That's a huge
in a way, that's also submission. In a way, that is also submission as well. I submit my life to this person, and I will do everything in my power to provide them the happiness and the life that they deserve. And in a way, that is also submission. It goes both ways. It goes both, and I feel like they are maybe even missing that. I feel like a lot of Christians who have this whole outlook of submission and leading, like a dominant person and a submissive person, you know, like, it's just, it goes both ways, especially in a healthy functioning relationship. It goes both ways, and it is important that it goes both ways. You cannot have one thing without the other.
Wife, so yeah, like Morgan's saying, wives, choose a man. And all men are going to be imperfect, but choose a man.
Alright, I'm going to skip some of this because I'm 30 minutes in to talking and only 10 minutes into the video.
Doesn't mean that I don't get to fulfill my duty in that moment.
Hearing you talk about that, practically, when you say that maybe Paul's doing something, he's making a mistake, he's dropping the ball, and I'm still called to submit, I definitely don't think it means that the woman, the wife, can't be like, husband, I feel like you're making a mistake here, or the decision that you're about to make is a mistake, here's my thoughts on it. And the husband should be able to hear that. The wife, voice your opinion, but the husband should just take away from the wife.
The husband should submit just as much to the man. And I guess times were different back then. Maybe back then it was more convenient because men listened to men, you know? Back in the old days, it was much more convenient for men to take over the situation and for the wife to sit back until they were in the bedroom and could argue about it one-on-one. You know what I mean? Behind, you know, the saying, behind every man is like some amazing woman, or however the saying goes. So that might have worked way back when, and that's okay. That's okay if that worked way back then. We're in different times now. We don't need that continuous, at least we shouldn't have that continuous, this is the leader and I submit to the leader, because that's bringing in this ideology that it is okay to control the person that you are with, but that is unhealthy.
Maintaining a posture of, husband, you're submitted before God, you're going to have to give an account. and ultimately you're going to make...
God should work, the Holy Spirit should work in between the relationship. It's not I submit to God and all of this sort of stuff. It's not like a hierarchy. It is we are together in this. We are one unit. We work together. That's really important too. It's not a dictatorship. One person is not on top of the other. It is not a triangle or anything like that. God is not at the very top. God is right next to us. He is right here. He is sitting with us. He is one-on-one with us. He is not above us. And he proved that. I think it was Jesus that washed the feet of all of the big scholars or whatever. He was not saying, I am above you. He was saying, I am here to support you. I am the ground beneath your feet. You know, I am the rock. You can stand on me. Literally stand on me if that is what it takes. Like I am, and we should be able to worship that. You know, we should be able to see that and say that is so self-sacrificing and that is beautiful how much he cares for us. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent.
This decision.
With the whole idea of like, no, you should be equal. Like, well, in a way, it is kind of equal. Like, it is equally as hard to lead a marriage as it is equally as hard to submit to a marriage.
I also want to point out, sometimes in relationships, one person gives 80% and the other is only giving such and such. So one person might be leading the relationship for a particular amount of time because sometimes the other person is incapable to do so. I know that some weeks I struggle from anxiety and depression. Some weeks I find it extremely hard, so hard to get out of bed and to do anything, and I need my partner to support me and push me out of bed if necessary, and to put me back on track. Not lead. I guess lead is a word that you could use, but to guide and to support and be there for me. And vice versa. There are some days where he is struggling so much. He lives so far away from his family in order to be with me. And he misses his family like there is no tomorrow. And sometimes he needs that push too. Sometimes he needs that support too. So that sometimes I lead the relationship. But when it comes to making big decisions, we sit down together and we talk these decisions over, because this is something that affects the both of us. And it is important to do that because we are one unit and we work together.
It makes sense. Different roles, but equally challenging, but equally gratifying. Yeah. Guys, when we're like walking in the way that God desires for.
Not everything is black and white. I'm going to probably end this video here. There is a lot more to the video, and if I get some feedback on this, I might do another part to it. I think I stopped it on 11:08 to be exact, for future reference if I need it. But it is so important to realize that not everything is black and white, especially on this earth after everything we've been through. Not everything is going to make complete sense, and we are always going to be learning. We are always going to have to be educating ourselves and learning more. And I feel like a lot of the time in Christianity, we find these people who are stuck in their own ways and beliefs because that is just what is easy. And sometimes it's not easy to question your beliefs. Sometimes it is not easy to challenge and to think or anything like that. Sometimes it's just easier to follow the rules because those are the rules and that's what's going to get you to heaven in the end. And if you don't, then you are punished for the rest of your life. But it's not that simple, and it is not that black and white. It is a very, very grey area, and it is something that we should be constantly questioning and progressing from and moving forward with. It is something that we should be challenging at all times, and especially when it comes to something like religion or something, or even just your morals in general, whether or not you believe in God. It depends on you as a person. If you cannot explain the reasons why you do the things you do, ask yourself that question. Why am I doing the things that I do? What makes me the person that I am? Just constantly asking questions. It's never wrong. It doesn't hurt to ask questions and to start a conversation. The worst that could happen is you learn more. Anyway, thanks for watching.